Police officials say they now have a warrant for the arrest of a suspect in connection to a shooting last night on the city's south side.
They're looking for Victor Weems III in connection to the shooting that injured one person. That person is in the hospital after being flown to Springfield. Weems is already wanted on other charges, and police say they consider him armed and dangerous, and they urge anyone with information to contact police immediately. Meanwhile, they say an uptick in gun violence in recent months is the result of a handful of people who acquired handguns illegally, not a sign of gang violence.
There's two different groups of individuals that had a argument of some sorts, and that's what led to the shooting incident.
And Tyler says staffing issues at QPD have prevented reforming a street crimes unit. He says the department has been getting help from Illinois State Police and deputies from the Adams County Sheriff's Office.